right here. Okay, I call this meeting of the Monomoy Regional School Committee to order at 6:31. And the first item of business is the approval of the meeting minutes. Are there any corrections?
I move to approve the minutes of the meeting minutes from September 27th.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Public comment? Deja. Thank you.
Thank you. May I begin? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Carpenter, Chairperson Richardson, and members of the school committee. As you can see, tonight we have another strong showing of support from our association membership. Joining us in our solidarity are our brothers and sisters from other local associations, as well as Mary Najimy, the president of the Massachusetts Teachers Association. The Monomoy Regional Education Association is strong and united. We appreciate all of the support from our own membership, that of other local associations, the MTA, and the community at large who we loyally serve. It is energizing to us to know that you will stand beside us and with us as we work for fair and settled contracts. I am saddened that recently the teachers of our district have been maligned by suggestions that we are the reason that annual traditions and successful programs are being canceled or brought to an end at our high school. This is especially concerning to me as the president of the Monomoy Regional Education Association. Our negotiation teams and I have worked very hard to be sure to encourage our members to serve our students and our community with the same commitment to excellence as they always have. It can be difficult for students, families, stakeholders, and the public at large to fully understand the complexities of contract negotiations, especially as we have decided to remain faithful to the mediation process and not publicize the disputes between administration and staff. Any insinuation that teachers have undermined the quality of education for our students through this challenging bargaining process is disingenuous and damages the culture we have all worked together to build in our schools. We want our students and families to know that the original JAWSOM, which is the name of our high school academic support program, was designed by teachers, and it is a proposal by teachers that is still waiting to become part of the new contract. Its trial phase has ended. Until there is a new contract, the original JAWSOM, which required changes in the high school schedule, cannot be continued. JAWSOM was an idea conceived by teachers and strongly supported by Principal Bill Burkhead in response to improving academic performance. A hallmark of Monomoy High School is that its students want to be successful. They are involved in a variety of activities and sports that demonstrate and add to our strong school culture of high expectations, acceptance, and engagement. Yet many of these same students have family obligations or jobs that prevent them from coming before or after school for extra help. In the event that they have been absent or because they need additional instruction, The Jawson period was designed specifically to meet the needs of these students, but something even greater was achieved: autonomy and opportunity. Students were able to make decisions about their personal learning needs. They decided which educators to see for additional support, enrichment, or simply engagement. Jawson built strong relationships between teachers, staff, and students, while providing a structure in which students could receive the additional academic tutoring necessary for success. Jawson allowed students to move freely through the school during a designated time that was created just for them. They could enjoy lunch in a variety of settings, engaging with friends or faculty. They practiced time management and personal responsibility. This autonomy enabled students to be completely connected because they were the decision makers in their future and the caretakers of their school community and space. Principal Burkhead was awarded Principal of the Year for his deep compassion and dedication to strengthening ties between teachers and students, which was exemplified by the original Jawson. In Principal Burkhead's own words, it starts with one caring adult who shows genuine interest in a child and believes wholeheartedly that they can and will succeed. This adult must then commit to doing whatever it takes to help that child succeed. Our faculty and staff will continue their commitment to do whatever it takes. But we are deeply saddened by the loss of the original Jawson. We are hopeful that our mediation session on October 16th will be productive and promising. We remain resolute. We want you to know that we will work for as long as it takes and do whatever it takes until we get fair contracts. We have the strength and resolve to go the extra mile. Every day, the educators of this district come to work and do their best for you and the students and the families of Harwich and Chatham and surrounding towns. We urge you to do your best and present us with a respectful settlement. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else?
I'd like to speak briefly. I'm in my 27th year of teaching in this area, over 22 years at Chatham High School. And I just have to say, I've been pretty quiet for a long time, but this is the most disrespected I have ever felt in the 26 years of teaching. I work my butt off. I love our kids. I've actually taught someone here on the school committee, and I think lots of people know that my heart is always in the right place. But it's really sad to feel that we can constantly be given more work to do without any kind of, I don't even want to say compensation, because it's not about the money. It's just about respect. So I respectfully ask that you realize that we have a great district right now. I remember a few years ago when we first started, my doctor saying to me, "Oh, I hear things are, you're real in trouble over there." And I said, "Well, no, I like Monomoy. I think it's going to be okay." And then just a few months ago, at my physical therapist said, "Oh, you're at Monomoy? I hear that's a great district." And that's because it is. And please don't take this personally, but that's not because of the school committee. It's because of the teachers and the kids. I've been asked my name. My name is Lisa Forte Doyle. Thank you.
you.
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Kyle Charlo. I'm a senior here. Sorry for the underdress, just got out of practice. It is the committee's interest that the teachers receive a fair contract, that these disputes end once and for all. We, the students of Monomoy Regional High School, are products of our environment. The school committee decides for that environment. In the past, their choices have resulted in Monomoy Regional High School being, as Mr. Burkett always says, a home away from home. A home that nourishes future citizens, which give back to the very community that the community decides to represent. But while the committee is the foundation, it is the teachers who make the home away from home. And what is a home without personal teachers? These teachers spend much of their valuable time making sure we are prepared for the lives that we go on to take. These are times they could be spending with the family, with higher education, doing that, making sure that we are better. To not compensate them is seen as disrespectful to the values that you expect them to teach us. Please help us, your future citizens, leaders of our community, and possible leaders of this committee, by showing the respect that the teachers demand so much.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, moving on. Okay, moving on, we have recognitions.
Two quick ones. First, this morning, we had the Credit for Life Fair here at the high school. David Alexander is one of our teachers, has helped organize that for the last several years. It was a wonderful event, and we really want to extend our thanks to Cape Cod 5 Bank for allowing the Credit for Life Fair to happen and for all the support that they provide behind that, but also to a large number of other individuals and businesses from the local community who partake in the Credit for Life Fair at the various stations. So in your packets, there's a list of, in the inside of all the different individuals who were part of the Credit for Life Fair. So thank you to all. And then the other one, I just have a little thank you to Dr. Blanchard, who donated a Bowflex machine to the middle school wellness program.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Snow?
I've heard wonderful things about this Credit for Life, and I actually tried to take off time for it, but it didn't work out.
Can we wait 1 second? Just,
Yeah, I
we
can't.
can't hear anything. Sorry, Sharon.
Okay. Yeah, I can't.
I don't know if
Was all this?
these are even on.
No, those are the TV mics.
Well,
We don't have the floor mic.
oh, that's fine, but I just can't even hear Sharon.
Is all this on air now? Is this working now?
It's been working.
Okay, all right. I can't hear it either.
Sorry, Sharon.
And
Thank
usually
you.
I can. I'm just wondering if it would be possible that maybe something could be taped about this?
I believe the students taped the introductory remarks today, and we're doing some filming of the fair itself. It's a little hard to capture because there's students going up to to a booth on transportation and having to decide, are they going to do public transportation, or are they going to buy a car, or they're going to do public transportation for a number of years to save up money for a car. So, I think that they planned to go and do some filming, but I don't know how that played out.
Well, it just sounds like something that I would love to see, and probably would be great for our TV station if we could do it. Thanks so much.
Okay, next would be the bond anticipation note. Dawn?
On the 13th of September, I gave you an overview of the financing of the school building project, and I indicated at that time that we were going out for a renewal bid for the bond anticipation note that is due for payment on October 19th. We had those bids on October 3rd, and tonight before you is a motion to award the bid to Cape Cod 5. There were 2 vendors that bid on it, and it's a renewal bid. And in your packet, there's a motion that you can utilize to award that under your item on the agenda, which is further down. But what I wanted to point out was the information that I provided as a backup here was the just 4 pages of a 132-page document that indicated what we wanted for a bid and what the premium, I think you're familiar with the premium use now from my presentation the last time. We asked for a premium to pay our issuance costs, and that was one of the reasons that we got a low net interest cost, because we got a significant $6,000 premium. So at this point, the other item that I wanted to show you, I did review with you a very quick overview of the budget items. And in your packet, I indicated, I had provided to you what we call the sources and use form that we had to submit to MSBA. It looks like this. I think you have it. Okay. Basically what this does is summarizes the entire project from the standpoint of what our budget started out at, which was $59.4 million. We spent $58.9. The MSBA grant that is going to be given to us in total is $27.5 million. The cash contribution by the district is $2.6. What that means is, if you recall, in my presentation, I mentioned all the premiums that we received through both the bond issue and other bands. And that's where this sum of money came from that you authorized to offset some of our costs. And we also issued a bond for $28 million. The amount that is left to be financed for this project is $241,000. And we had a couple of meetings with the finance team, and as you know from the last meeting, that consists of the town's managers, the finance directors, the superintendent, business manager, and myself. And we had a discussion about the best way to handle the $241 that we're going to owe next October, and also the handling of the $1 million that we're going to receive sometime in December from MSBA, which is the balance that they owe us at this point for the grant. And the last item that you see on the other sources that I did mention at the previous meeting was we received grants to the tune of $588,000, primarily for energy efficiency. So bottom line at this point is we're getting money from MSBA for $1.1 million. We are only going to have to finance $241,000. And the suggestion at this point from the finance team is to go with what we call a State House note. So that would be in your FY20 budget, but it would be financed over a 3-year time frame. So that's been our discussion at this point. If you have any questions in regard to the bid process, which I did outline and provided some of the documents internally in your packet, or this summary of the total project. Again, you started off with a $64 million project. The budget became $59 million. We spent 58, but we're only bonding 28 instead of bonding 36 million. So there is a significant difference between what was authorized and what we're actually going to bond. And last but not least, we only have to finance $240,000 over a 3-year time frame.
Okay.
So if you have any other questions, I'd be glad to answer those. And you have an item to award the band, and that's why I prepared that motion for you. And it's been reviewed by the bond council. So,
Any questions or discussion? Yes.
Well, everything you said makes a lot of sense, but I have a note on mine under the general obligations that says State House Note. Did you already explain it, and I just didn't get it?
right. The State House notes are what you've seen before you in the past. It's called bond anticipation notes if we're going to issue bonds.
Yes.
And the only bond we issued at this point was the 28 million. So what we have to finance now
Yes.
is the state legislature created a State House note program that municipalities can go and secure funding from them for a different interest rate compared to bidding out to banks and things of that nature. So you actually go through the state organization in order to say, okay, we want $240,000. We only want to pay for it over 3 years. What's the interest rate we're going to have? So it's a little different mechanism to get money.
Okay, thank you.
That's just a difference between the two.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, anything else? Then, do you want this motion?
If you would, yes, move that up on the agenda to approve the award.
Ms. Richardson. I move that the Monomoy Regional School District Committee approves the District Treasurer's Award of $1,500,000 General Obligation Bond Anticipation Note Renewal dated October 19th, 2018, payable on October 18th, 2019, to Cape Cod 5-cent Savings Bank in accordance with the terms set forth in the Notice of Sale dated September 27th, 2018. And further voted that the premium paid to the district upon the sale of this bond anticipation note ban be appropriated in amount needed to pay the cost of the issuance of this ban and to use the net premium to reduce the amount authorized to be borrowed by the district but not yet issued by the district. And further voted that each member of the committee, the district secretary, and the district treasurer be and hereby are authorized to execute and deliver such documents necessary to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing vote.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Next report would be accountability ratings and MCAS results.
All right. Jim, is Jim still?
It's around the corner.
You can stay right there. If you can plug it in anywhere, I can drive. So in your packets, there's two things. Blue one that has a slide if you were at the Community Strategic Planning Forum. That was one of the slides that we talked about. And then the other one will kind of help explain what accountability is under the state's new rating system. So the first just just to kind of loop back for the roughly half of the school committee that was at the strategic planning forum. If we look at where Monomoy was before we fully regionalized in 2012, on average, our fourth through eighth graders were not seeing growth, academic growth above the state average in any particular year, so that we were having academic growth at in ELA of 46.1, and 50 is the academic growth that you would have as the state average. And we talked at the community forum that our that our focus really has been in the district of looking at this academic growth and saying, let's make sure that we're seeing at least that 50 on the student growth percentiles, because that equates to 1 year's academic growth in a school year. So if you look at where we landed in 2018, that academic growth is in ELA 53.2, slightly above the state average, and in math, in the grades 4 through 8, 59.3. So I've tagged up there anywhere it's red. We're below the state, below that state average, below that 50. I've also been very clear with our staff on opening day and at that community forum that shooting for the state average is not what we want to be doing here in the school district. We want to be shooting, far above that state average and trying to push this district to be the best it can be. Having a bar of the state average is not a bar to shoot for if we're wanting to see great improvement in the school district. In your packet, if you flip below that page, there's the email that I sent you back on the 28th, just sort of summarizing where we were with our MCAS scores and where we were with accountability. The long and short, the district's accountability falls in the partially meeting expectations range, and I'll kind of explain accountability here in a second. But there are some really bright, rays of distinction amongst this, and that is that our middle school's scores, both that you see up here in the 2018 for fifth grade, sixth grade, and seventh grade ELA and math, are significantly above the state average in many of those areas, and what we actually see is that our middle school's academic performance is really leading the Cape when it comes to middle schools, so that the accountability rating that Monomoy Regional Middle School got is actually a higher rating than what you see at Lighthouse Charter School or what you see at Nauset Middle School. So some great things are happening there, and a lot of credit is due to Principal Wilson and his staff. So I thought that Kat Smits did a nice job of summarizing that in what's presented, or what was presented in the article she wrote for the Cape Cod Chronicle last week. So if we go to the web browser, so next, if we flip to the one that has a couple bar charts on it. So this is just a printout of the states, and I know the numbers when they project up there are going to be small, so you've got it in front of you. This is a projection. This is a projection of the state's MCAS data for 3rd through 10th grade. As Monomoy compares to the state. In the handout that you have, what I've done is I've highlighted spots on this where, in yellow, where our numbers fall below that state, fall below that state average. So you'll notice that in 4th grade, we see math and English both below the state average when it comes to students meeting or exceeding expectations. We see it in 7th grade English language arts, despite having slightly higher than the state average on growth, we're still seeing the number of students in that meeting or exceeding slightly below the state average. What's also of concern is that we see at the high school on the next page, our growth, our student growth percentage is rather low when it comes to to English in particular. That 45% is down significantly from where it had been in past years. So there's a mix of areas that we're doing well in and areas that we need to focus in. And one of the things that we've been discussing on our end is you can go on this website. If I have Jim stop scrolling us back down, you can go to MCAS. You can go to MCAS results by subgroup and click on that, and you'll get to a page that looks like this. What I've done is I've just printed out grade 4 for you to give you a feel for how our team is starting to look at some of this data. So if we can scroll down this to the 4th grade English language arts, and so we can look at how many students were meeting or exceeding expectations, and what the growth was. So the very last line on the 4th grade English language arts will show that 43% of the students were meeting expectations, 10 exceeding, so that's 53% meeting or exceeding expectations, which was dead on what the state's, which the state had 43% of the students meeting expectations and 10 exceeding. But we also noticed that the state, or that Monomoy's growth is slightly less than the state's average, in part because, we're seeing some higher growth at in some of the grade areas, and if we're not tracking and seeing comparable growth year after year, you'll see our number might, the end result might be the same as the state's, but the growth isn't the same. So we see us a little behind the state average there in growth. But then if you want to start breaking it out to where the need is, and this was one of the things that we also brought up at the Strategic Planning Community Forum, and I thought Principal Wilson, when he was sort of disaggregating his data, he talked about that there are certain subcategories of students that our district really needs to focus on doing a better job with. So highlighted on your sheet of paper is, if you look at the high needs line, on the high needs line, 27% of the Monomoy students at grade 4 in English were meeting expectations, 2 were exceeding, so that's 29% meeting, exceeding. You look at the state's average, 30% meeting, 4% exceeding. So the state's average is a little bit higher than Monomoy's for high needs students. What high needs students means. High needs students are students who have disabilities on IEPs, students who are economically disadvantaged, or students who are English language learners are in that category. So the top line on this 4th grade English language arts report, you'll notice that if we look at meeting or exceeding, 19% of the Monomoy students who have disabilities were meeting expectations. There weren't any advanced. On the state, 15% meeting, 1% advanced. So our students with disabilities doing slightly better than the state average. The long and short here is there's a recurrent theme if we start to look within the subgroups, grade level after grade level, and that's that our students who are economically disadvantaged and our students who are ELL students tend to struggle more than our other students, and we tend as a district to have pockets and at grade levels where we're actually doing a poorer job with those students than the state average. So so one of the things that that we raised in that community forum is, we have this growing population of English language learners in our district. And one of the things I think we need to do better as a district is address their needs, because, we seem to be doing a much better job with other subgroups, but we have pockets of students that are struggling here. And we also know that there's a large connection between some of those ELL students and the economically disadvantaged. So you can be in a high needs for just having one of those three areas, but you might be a child who has a learning disability, is an ELL learner, and is economically disadvantaged. You could be all three, but you just show up once in that economic or that high needs group. So that gives you a little run through of how we look at the numbers and what we're how we're trying to break out these to look at where we need to focus supports. When it comes to accountability, if I can get this to go back up in the next tab over on the DESE school profile is the accountability tab. The accountability system for Massachusetts changed for this year. In previous years, school districts were rated as a level 1 school, a level 2 school, level 3 school, 4 and 5. Monomoy, for the last 5 years, has been a level 2 school district with all of its schools being level 2 schools. And that whole system got sort of thrown out the window with a rather complex bit of calculus to come up with the new accountability system. So we'll attempt to do new accountability in short. The punchline here is, if you look at our accountability rating, we hit a criterion reference target percentage of 69%, which has us falling in the partially meeting targets range. In your packet, there's a little list that says, if you're in this percentage, so if you are in the 0 to 49%, you're not meeting targets. If you're 50 to 74%, you're partially meeting targets. If you're 75 to 100, you're meeting targets. And then for those that are not meeting targets, there are some distinctions that you fall into if you need focused, targeted support, or if you are needing broad, comprehensive support. And think of that latter category as that's when the state's coming in to take over, schools versus the state's coming in to provide some supports. And then the state does, for a few schools, recognize that exemplary situations that are happening when it comes to this new accountability system. I think one of the ways the new accountability system is different than in the past is the past focused really on what was the end achievement that students got, and there's a mix here of many different categories. There's achievement, there's the growth number that we have been focused on. There's also high school completion, how many of your students are graduating. There's what sort of progress you're having with English language learners in your district. And then you have other areas that the state's looking at. One of them is on attendance, specifically, how is what's your chronic absenteeism look like for a school district? And the last one is on what percentage of your high school students are taking advanced coursework in their junior and senior years. So there's all these different factors, and you get points for whether you're meeting targets that they set out for you, based on how you did previously. And if you're meeting that target and moving the ball forward, you get points. And if you are falling below that number from last year, you're not going to be realizing any points in that area. So, so if you think of this as having a higher score means that you have a school that's improving. Having a lower score is a school that's not progressing forward. It's either stagnating or it's sliding backwards. So how about, I'll stop and breathe there for a second. Questions on just accountability in general?
My question is, when they talk about how many of your kids take advanced courses, does that mean honors or just advanced placement?
It means, for the most part, it means advanced placement or IB courses. There are some areas that in the sciences, if you take a course that has a little buzz to it. So if you take a course that's a genetics course, it counts in this area, or if you take a course that, it's not just AP, but for the most part, it's what percentage of your students end up taking AP courses in junior and senior year. And that involves, courses. It could be an AP course in the arts. It could be an AP course in languages. But if you're taking a fifth-year language but not taking it as an AP course, it wouldn't count, despite the fact that you're in the fifth year of that language class. So, so one of the things that we've been doing on our end, I know I had a conversation with Mark Smith, is to look at and make sure that we're tagging all of our courses that are advanced appropriately, and just looking, making sure that, that we're reporting data out to the state in a way that makes the most sense. But
So on that, do they have to pass the AP exam by a certain thing, or do they have to take the course?
The number of kids taking the AP exam and the number of kids that get a 3 or higher has nothing to do with this. It's just advanced coursework. So if we go back to the Monomoy data that's up there, we can kind of look at how they come up with their number. One of the things to note is that they break this down into non-high school grades and high school grades. So they're giving you sort of a point tally for what percentage of the score are you getting for your non-high school students, and what percentage for high school. In our case, they weighted our, I guess, 70% of our student body are in grades 8 through, or K through 8. So they're weighting the non-high school as 70%, the high school as 30% of our district. They also then further break out, so you have all students, so you're looking at the performance of all students, and then they look at the performance of the lowest performing students within your district or within a school. And how they define lowest performing is, it's the lowest performing 25% of the students, or the lowest performing 25 students, whichever is a bigger number. So you can imagine for our middle school, high school, and Harwich Elementary School, that would be 25%. For Chatham Elementary School, where a cohort of students, 25 students is larger than 25% of the class, they would look at the 25 lowest performing students. So what they want to do is look at how much are you moving the students along, looking at all of the students, but how much are you moving along the lowest performing students as well. So they want to have districts accountable for moving everybody, but really, trying to place some emphasis on, if we want to make headway, you've got to be moving this lowest performing set forward, and that there's additional emphasis in this accountability system. So you'll note on the second page there that that we at our non-high school students, we get 89% of the total possible points for all of the students, and we actually get 89% of the total possible points for our lowest performing students at the lower grade levels. For our high school students, you'll note that we get only 38% of the points for our high school students, and at our high school, we only get 8% of the points for our lowest performing students. And it's one of those things that, that I've had conversations with, with Principal Burkhead on, looking at last year and are there things that happened last year or things that we have to think about, because we seem to have, sort of mixed data on some level. I think even, Sherry Armstrong, talked about that, that there were successes that we saw in fewer students failing courses at the high school, but when it came to our students who struggle the most, when it comes to an outside standardized sort of system, way of looking at it, we seem to be not serving those students as well as we should, and we need to kind of look at the system, and we can kind of get into, you can look at the high school, data on the, on the MCAS results, and you'll notice that we've kind of gone backwards. And I shared with, with Bill Burkhead, if I anticipated what was going to happen with this new accountability system, my anticipation going into this summer was that 8th grade has historically in Chatham and Harwich and Monomoy been sort of an underperforming middle school data point, and that the saving grace for both Chatham Public Schools, Harwich Public Schools, and Monomoy Public Schools has been the growth, this tremendous growth that we see from 8th grade to 10th grade when the students take the MCAS exam, so that despite starting at a below the state average level in 3rd through 8th grade, we end up above the state average by what happens at our high school. And suddenly for this last year, we see this anomaly in the data for 1 year, where, because when we look specifically at our high school, the exact opposite happened. The 8th graders carried the day, and what happened on the high school, the true high school end here, left a lot of room for improvement. So if we...
Can I ask a question for you?
Sure.
In the achievement section,
Yep.
so is that just using the MCAS results?
So,
Is that-
yeah, so on this little packet sort of breaks
Sorry, I
out...
shouldn't have interrupted.
No, it's okay. So this packet breaks out how they define each of these. So achievement looks at, is essentially looking at the average score, scaled score that students are getting. But think about it, it's looking at how many of those students are getting into the advanced and getting into the meeting or exceeding expectations range. Conceptually, you could think of it that way. So you get points for an achievement for ELA, math, and science, and then the growth is looking at ELA and math, and what sort of student percentage growth are you seeing there? And what we know is at our middle school, those growth scores look great, and there's room for improvement in the other 3 schools. And then one of the things that we'll just kind of point out here is chronic absenteeism. And if we if we look up on our Monomoy chart, under chronic absenteeism, you can get 4 points in this area, and we actually see absenteeism, and they define chronic absenteeism as the percentage of students missing 10% or more of their days in membership. It's an issue in the district, and it's something that it happens. It's an issue in each of the buildings, and it's something that we need to mull. And just side conversations that we've had since is, and I know that when the first year I was here, I know at the time Chairman Whittegren was talking about should we have one of the vacation weeks or both of the vacation weeks be, on a different week than what the other school districts are doing, so that our families could get cheaper airfare, because what we're seeing is there's a number of families that are taking advantage of cheap airfare, and kids are missing school. And might that be a way to promote students being in school? So I think we really need to dig into that. But when we look back at this data, it's that absenteeism becomes one of these odd anomalies that's uniquely, seems to be uniquely ours at the moment.
But it looks like it's only for the up through K through 8.
It's an issue at the high school. It's just that the high school did better this past year than they had in the past.
Okay.
And that could be later start time was better for the high school. So you get points if you're doing better than you did the previous year. Think of it that way. This is sort of a growth model way of looking at accountability. But if you're going the wrong direction or static, you're going to see a number, as they say on the baseball cast, a round number instead of a pointy number. Is that it? So in the packet behind those, I have the accountability ratings for each of the schools. So one can go to a tab. Within the tab, you can go to the schools in this district, and you click on the schools in this district, and we can pick any one of the schools. So we'll start with the good news. We can pick the middle school from that, and you get the middle school's accountability rating. So if you flip in there to the middle school's accountability rating, you'll see that out of the 100% that it could get, it got an 83% accountability rating. And but you will notice that it did get absolutely no points when it came to chronic absenteeism, because, as I said, issue with the district, and had it gotten those points, it would have been up there close to 90%. So, and a lot of this is because there's improvement that's seen in the achievement scores happening at the middle school, and there's improvement seen in growth, and that's paying off in that final number. The other thing that's really positive that you see there is that you see that we're meeting 87%, or we're getting that 87% for the all students, but we've also got a pretty high number, above 75%, for the lowest performing students. So so there's a lot of great things happening there. One of the interesting things is if you go at the middle school, and it's here at the bottom one is your high needs, and you'll notice the percentage for high needs, 94% for high needs. I mean, there's some really great things happening at the middle school, and again, I can't applaud them enough for how they're moving the ball in many different ways. And then we could do sort of a compare and contrast one. So if we go to if we go to the high schools, which is the last 2 pages in this, we have the non-high school grades. Read here, 8th grade, right? Yeah, so, and that's why it says weight of non-high school is 20%, and weight of high school, because we have 8th grade, and then we have 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. So the 8th graders earn 77%. The 8th graders were actually functioning in that meeting targets range. 9 through 12 was functioning way down there. And again, it's this thing that we need to really look into, break apart, and digest. It's there's very mixed data out there in terms of we see benefits that happened last year related to one aspect of a schedule change, but then we also see data out there that there's been an overall academic backslide in some areas. And then if we look at high needs, and I think the percentage shows up on the back page, the high needs group was 41%. Almost half what the high needs group was at the middle school. So that would be accountability in a nutshell. You could spend forever just kind of clicking on the next link and digging down, but I'll just leave it for questions.
Just a couple of comments, and I agree with you. Thanks for the clarity, Scott. There's so much information, so I really had a chance to dig anywhere deeper, even if I would be able to understand what I've discovered. However, it's interesting to me with a little bit of my background. I wonder if, in not taking any praise away from the middle school progress, whether or not it was beneficial to historically move the grade 8 low scores into the high school. Thus, the scores of the middle school reflect 7th grade and 6th grade and 5th grade growth. My other observation, I don't have an answer for it, and maybe it's just similar to Provincetown with very small populations, the dramatic difference between growth over at Howard Elementary versus Chatham. It's almost 20% in one category under.
Right.
With the same cross-section of youngsters accepting a smaller pool. So either the smaller pool is skewing to that, or obviously it's something in the next couple of months we need to address and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, so just, I know I've sung the praises of great things happening at the middle school, but if you go to the accountability rating for Harwich Elementary School, Harwich Elementary School also has that highest rating of meeting targets, and its final accountability percentage is 78. I mean, it ranks up there right with what's happening at our middle school. And if you look at how they're there's virtually no difference between how they're supporting their weakest students to their strongest students. And if you look at the high needs subgroup, there's no difference between how they're supporting their high needs subgroup versus all students. I mean, just a real positive in terms of what's happening in that building. I actually think that was Sam Hine going out on a high note. Yes, leaving Mary a very high bar.
Goodbye, good luck.
Yeah, and and I want to kind of emphasize one thing. The way this new accountability system is, because each year you have to keep doing a little bit better. It does mean that that sometimes you're going to be meeting expectations and be at this really high level, and the next year, I think when you look at the high school's data when it came to high school completion, I think there was one student who didn't walk across the stage, and all it takes is one student to suddenly shift, and you get no points.
Okay, anything else? Well,
I guess a final comment, and again, it's a dilemma. The absenteeism chronic, as it approaches, a chronic issue in evidently all 4 schools to some extent. At first blush, it would seem to me too simplistic to say our pool of parents seem to want to take that odd week for their vacations living here in Cape Cod for cheaper air flights, because that line of thought is throughout the Commonwealth. I mean, schools and parents living anywhere would maybe think of the same reason, thus, I don't know, I haven't looked into it, so I don't know why it's, my feeling it's not that. There's got to be some other issue that's impacting the 4 schools regarding the absenteeism.
On the same line, does tardies count towards absenteeism? Okay, so,
Well, they count, they
Yes.
count, we log it.
Right.
It's just the state
Right.
is looking at a specific number, and that's not it.
so if they're looking at absentees of the day, which would also impact learning, could we do some kind of, we do so much data-driven everything, could we do something on finding out what days of the year are the most absentees?
I'm sure we can drill down. I don't have it at the top of my head,
Because
but I know.
that might tell us something. I don't know, just a thought.
okay, can you come up for air and go on about the strategic plan?
All right. In terms of the strategic plan, since we last met, we had, on Saturday, September 29th, we had our strategic planning focus group for the day. I think at our last school committee meeting, we had talked about that with Joy's help, we had sent out invitations to just over 200, I think it was like 211 individuals or entities, inviting them or a member of their organization to come join us for this. We received 108 RSVPs saying that they would be there, and it was on a Saturday, and it was actually a really beautiful, nice weather Saturday, and we actually came out of this pretty well. I thought nobody's going to be here today. They'll be out enjoying the sun, but 97 people came there, so we had we had the bulk of those that responded, and we had everyone from school committee members to administrators to select people to firemen and policemen and parents and school council members, and it was a little of everyone. They went. The principals and I each gave a presentation on sort of the state of where we are, what are some of the challenges that we're having, what are some of the high points, the successes, and the slide that I started the MCAS presentation on was one of the slides that I was sharing on. Here's where we were, and we really focused our comments around this thing I referred to in my first year at Monomoy as the promise of Monomoy, that we could build a regional school district that would have better academic opportunities for our children. There'd be better options for them extracurricularly, and we can do all of that for less money than what the towns were previously spending combined on their individual school districts, and just sort of shared sort of snapshots of here's what's changed since last some people tuned in, because some of the people that had come to this forum last focused on the schools when there was the regionalization vote, and here's sort of an update of where we're at post-regionalization. So after the principals and I shared, we broke for lunch, and there were focus group questions and that took place, and those the verbatim sort of responses to the questions are in your packets. I'm not sure that they're entirely in order, but every at least they're, I think they got printed slightly out of order, but you'll have the obstacles for improvement. You'll have every, there are, I think, 11 different tables operating, and you have the notes from those 11 different tables typed verbatim here, and we have pictures of all of those posters as well that we've archived, and we'll kind of compile into a little web presentation of it. And then at the end, we took the themes that were showing up on these 11 different tables for each of the 4 questions and asked people to take a dot and say which of those themes most resonates with you. So if you go to the smaller of the 2 packets, the top page says strengths. The question that the individual tables focused on initially was, from what you know about the Monomoy Regional Schools, what are the strengths of the Monomoy program? And the themes that arose out of that from the 11 different tables, the most common ones are on here, and then the ones that received the greatest number of dots show up at the top of this list. So you'll see that 24 of the 97 people that were there indicated that relationships were the greatest strength of the district. 21 people indicated that the faculty was the greatest strength. 6 indicated that community supports and connections, and 5 the administration, and so on. So the second question that people had was, what do you see as Monomoy's areas of possible improvement? So the second page of this, 25 individuals indicated that they felt expanding learning opportunities and across the gamut, be it emotional intelligence, financial management, government, life skills, health. 11 indicated that they think an area of improvement is narrowing the achievement gap for all learners, particularly special education and English language learners. Another 11 felt that every student should have something that they're excited about. 8 suggested that we expand teaching repertoires, including things like authentic learning, brain-based research, and inquiry. And then we go to the third question that people reflected on. The third question was, in order to meet the unique needs of all learners and to position each graduate to be successful in 2003 and beyond, what enhancements should be made in the next 3 years to advance Monomoy's excellence? 28 of the individuals there indicated that teach in ways that emphasize real-world application, problem solving, and critical thinking is sort of an important direction to go. More opportunities for students to learn certain things. 18 people indicated for this: stress reduction, social skills, interpersonal skills, character building, citizenship. 14 indicated an importance of universal pre-K in our communities. So you start to see, even for those 3 in that area, 3 things where a significant number of people started to gel around things that should get changed as we look forward. And lastly, we have the 4th question that people focused on, which is obstacles to improvement. And the question was, what factors might hinder Monomoy from making significant progress in achieving an audacious strategy for the next 3 years, and how might we address these? And it was interesting. The 15 of the people put dots on that we really need to think about having our communities be affordable for families. 15 felt that financial resources for the school district were important. A lack of open-mindedness, 7. Challenges supporting working families, 6. School choice, 5. So you have themes, a number of themes related really to finance, both on the school and family level there. So that's sort of a summary of the day. I've got an email queued up and ready to go out pending conversations with this group on next steps. So we have talked about having a strategic planning steering committee get together and take the feedback and start moving it forward to coalesce into a strategic plan. I've discussed with the administrative team of having the central office staff and the principals available, and what we would like to see is that we have working, we kind of get this working group together, and at least in our schedules, we should be able to go and do 4:30 to 6 Mondays and Wednesdays until we get this done. So we'll be reaching out and ideally getting a teacher from each building as part of the steering committee. I've had a couple people who were part of that day that are sort of parent community members that have indicated that they'd like to be available or be part of this, and I've emailed them and said, hey, 4:30 to 6 Mondays and Wednesdays, would this fit into your schedule? So so we're ready to start rolling next week on this, if that sounds like a plan, with the hope that if we meet Mondays and Wednesdays and do some homework as a body in between, that by the time we come here in November, that we should have a draft of a strategic plan to move forward with as a district.
So originally, you had a certain number in mind. My interest, or a interest of mine, would be that there would be a fairly similar number of administrators, teachers, school committee members, parents, and community members. Does that sound like what you had thought about?
I think what I had initially sent was it wasn't a even number, but it touched base where we had principals, school committee. We tried to have that mix. I think a challenge is just trying to make sure that we've got enough people there, and to I think that I think a very important voice for the committee is that that I think our building-based administrators and I think particularly have sort of a boots on the ground vision on what needs to happen in their building to move it forward. And I think, so I think trying to say, oh, let's either have less principals or more people, I think there's a trade-off when, if we're going to say, okay, we have 4 principals, we need to have 4 school committee members and 4 parents and 4 community members. I think it starts to get to be such an unwieldy group that some of the most painful things in my life have been writing some things by committee, and and I'm afraid that we're not going to meet a deadline in that fashion.
Just as a couple of thoughts following up, I really don't have any major reflecting on the membership here in the school committee. Whoever would like to join that group, I think that's fine with me. Getting back to some sort of people of influence, I'd like to see a cross-section of classroom teachers at all 3 levels who would volunteer to be part of it. And I guess I'm echoing your point, Scott. We pay people around here for a living that, take for example, our last half hour looking over the MCAS and the standards courses. if I were working in that realm, I would have spent 4 or 5 or 6 hours in my office reading and studying this document to come up with some thoughts relative to with my 200 kids or 500 kids, what it might be. So those 4 principals and curriculum director, that's what we're inviting them to create a navigation here for us, lay people. So if anybody should be there, I think it's vital that they commit to that. My last thought on that, and to end on that note, whatever we've all done as lay people, whether it's a chaplain or a minister or a fire chief, very limited amount of input when it comes to such strategic plans that you can, I think, expect out of those folks who are making or working a living as mothers or dads at home, or running their business, and then you're inviting them. So I think that to me implies even a greater strength to make certain the people we have on board as curriculum leaders and building leaders, they're vital. The other thought strikes me, and it's like these kid games that have like 3 plexiglass levels, like checkers. The 3 levels, we as a committee and the team leaders 3 years ago created a strategic plan. Some of that was accomplished, others it's out there floating. That document should be brought forward, and then last August the principals and curriculum directors got together with us for an early evening and went over what their brainstorming during their retreat came up with. That's a second document that should be present and available. And then thirdly, this is a massive amount of material, and somehow we need to generically find what fits under those other 2 top areas, hopefully, so that the major categories, they don't keep changing every 3 years, but in fact, we would have, so that's more like a format of what the strategic plan committee, steering committee, should kind of create, so that the last 2 documents end up being double-checked and saying, yes, it is included, and then somehow draw these major highlights under those former 2, or add a new one that strikes everyone on that steering committee. So those are my thoughts.
I just want to echo your points. We've done a lot of, I think, strong groundwork in those meetings you just mentioned, and they shouldn't be abandoned. Those should be the pillars of what we're building on, and so I just echo what you say. Joanne?
There's a technique to writing strategic plans, so my question is, where's the direction going to come from? Because there's going to be those, when you go into the community, where maybe perhaps they haven't written a strategic plan. Could be somebody in the educational field that hasn't written one. Where's the direction going to come from, so we're not running around in circles and we're hitting at what we need to do?
Well, I guess the committee has 2 choices. It's either you hire a facilitator to provide the direction, or you recognize that you've hired myself, Mark, Melissa, 4 principals to help steer that, because for each one of the principals essentially creates a strategic plan for their building, and that's what you've been seeing over the past years is school improvement plans. It's taking that same approach, looking at, how do we improve, instead of a school, how do we improve a district?
I have no problem with it, I just want to know that there's a direction.
Right. So my presumption is that we take the school improvement plan model that we've been following, which actually followed our strategic plan model previously, and sort of use that structure. Yeah.
Okay. My other question, go ahead.
No.
My other question is, are you going to build, when you build your strategic plan, will everybody else's build into it, the schools?
Yeah, that's, so the way we have been operating over the last 3 years is the school improvement plans sort of, they dovetail in with the strategic plan. Now, granted, there may be something in a school improvement plan that's unique for that building that at the time wasn't part of the vision of the strategic plan, but they've been complementary documents.
I'm sorry, Terry.
Additional maybe final thought on this, and I don't know where our budget is, but in for a penny, in for a pound. Without placing value on Patty Grenier's role, if there, and I don't even know what stipend she was offered, or however that all worked, if she were available as a facilitator for the 3 Wednesdays or the 4 Wednesdays, I don't see that as, I see that also as a potential plus from where she came from as a superintendent of a large district, and also attending 6 hours a week ago last Saturday. Again, I leave that up to whoever's managing the budget numbers for that, and we clearly could move forward without type of that role, but she was plugged in, so it might be worthwhile if we find ourselves able to afford it.
I want to echo what Terry said as well, that the draft workshop results from the administrators that was brought to us back in July? August, whenever it was over the summer, that had a lot of very valuable information that needs to be carried forward, as well as the original strategic plan, or the last strategic plan, plus all this information. And I also agree with Scott with that. You don't want too many people. It's going to make it, we had the large community event where there was the almost 100 people there, and now you're taking their ideas and synthesizing them down. So just the cautionary of, as you said, writing by group is very challenging. It'll make it probably multiple times longer the more people you have.
Well, I don't feel that way at all. I really feel that I've mentioned that I've been with, when the Chatham, evidently there were 2 ones that the Chatham had, because Amy Middleton, who used to be on the school committee, was on the one that you sent out to us. But there was another one that I was on that was 2 days of hearing just from the community. So the one that we just had was hearing a lot from the administrators, and it was very strong on that. It was great that people heard that. But there was only an hour for the community members to do their 15 minutes a question, and then they had to put their dots on there. So that's not much community input. So I really feel like it is important that we take what they said and use that, and also have representation. But I mean, I do see parents and as community members also. On this Monday and Wednesday, will it be every Monday and Wednesday? Or are we going to decide after the meeting what dates we're doing?
Well, I think the admin team is committed to do, starting next Monday, to start doing Monday, Wednesdays, knowing full well that there are times that some of them might have something that they're called away for, but the hope is that we can have enough of the committee together, the steering committee that is, together over those days to make headway, and just kind of, the way our team has operated, we'll put together a Google Doc where everybody can kind of get in and collectively work.
Joanne?
I really feel like we got a good bit of information, and I would say by the time we got to the 4th element, we started to hear the same thing over again, and I think the input was terrific. I felt like they were very honest, and including a young lady that I had that I thought really focused us better probably than almost anybody. Kind of brought us back to, let's think about what kids needed. Good point. And I just have to agree with the writing process. When you get into the wordsmithing, it can become overwhelming if there's too many people.
Actually, I think as the steering committee, starts meeting, I know Terry had mentioned, for those 3 people in television land that are watching right now, there was a workshop that the administrators had with the school committee, just sharing our thoughts on where we see needs for the district to improve. And, you know, it was interesting, and I think there's a lot of alignment there between the dots that are showing up, that showed up, a week ago Saturday, and where we saw that. There was a big emphasis in what we shared with you on needs to focus on social emotional learning, and needs to focus on this sort of closing the gap, knowing we have ELL and students that that economically struggle, that aren't performing at the same level, and that's showing up as one of the big things in terms of most common things that people are responding to. So I think they're very complementary, and I think together it gets us heading in a positive direction.
Well, and I think you, in each one of the presentations, you defined what some of the educational jargon is, because everybody doesn't know those letters. And so I think the presentations covered that well. And the people who were inputting information certainly took what they heard and presented it in their ideas.
Okay. Is that enough information for you to
More than
move
enough.
forward?
Yep, we're good at that.
Next.
You done talking yet, Scott?
All right. Well, then, how about those goals?
Okay, so if we get to the superintendent's report and the goals, in your packet, this is what was presented last time with the friendly addition from the committee. So last time, there was a request on the student learning goal where I had indicated delve into map testing tool data firsthand, to have a parent forum or a parent university to help them understand MCAS and map testing. We've added that as a goal here. We've actually put it on our calendar, and Mark and I will be hosting that November 1st at 6:30 in the middle school auditorium. Just other little things. Mark and I have, in terms of professional practice goal number 2, which is getting in on these learning walks. We've already done one round with each new administrator, and it's a nice opportunity to get into classrooms with new administrators and work with them on their own improvement. And at the same time, it's sort of professionally rewarding and opportunities for both Mark and I to grow on our end. That would be it for my goal presentation.
That was-
But I think there needs to be some sort of, does the committee want to accept the goals or not?
Yes.
We had mentioned last time that we would look at some of the input from the strategic plan to see if we wanted to change or add anything to this. And I see as strength on the strategic plan that 24 people put relationships, 21 put faculty. I'd just like to see a goal about keeping our positive relations with faculty, parents, students. If it's our number one strength, I think that is something that's really important.
I don't disagree in its importance.
Madam Chair, on that, and Sharon, that strength relationship, whoever wrote those 24 noted that that's a strength of the district, as opposed to a goal that needs to be improved. Right? So, my other thought on that is, whatever number of the steering committee is in the next 5 or 6 weeks, when they glean through this and blend a draft that comes before us, out of that undoubtedly will come something that the administrative leadership team and/or specifically Scott may in fact adopt, because I can recall chatting about that, as a goal, because it just stood out. I think the relationship right now, it's a little premature to identify any one of these to say add that to the list, because we could be doing that right in the next 3 or 4 weeks regarding just this rough draft. So out of the steering committee's final crystallizing all of these thoughts of, because really that Saturday, and I agree with you, Sharon, even though it took a little bit longer than one could plan, but that's how they all are, other than having a 3-day retreat. The fact that the 90 community members heard from 4 school leaders, I thought that was tremendous stuff. I appreciate a lot of the stuff that I had maybe either heard or didn't listen to. So I think it was a real plus for 90 people to walk out of that high school at 3 saying, gee, some good stuff I heard from those people who are trying to cause this place to become better. But I think it was kind of like a dipstick afternoon, meaning or temperature taking, where, whatever terms you give that for 3 hours you gauge the tempo of 30 people or 70 people or 100. And then you walk away, they, meaning the navigators of this thing, and say, we need to look in this area. That's what all you could imagine out of a 3-hour cross-section of the community, I would imagine. So, I don't know, I think we should, with the understanding, vote on Scott's goals for this coming year, with the understanding that there could be a add-on goal that jumps out at us as this strategic plan becomes voted by us.
Do you want to make that a motion?
I think I couldn't even remember what I said, but sort of you get the idea that based on the final vote of the strategic plan, reflection on superintendent's goals for the coming year will be considered. Does everyone kind of get what I'm trying to say? So there might be.
Yeah, go.
I think what I understand is that
Wordsmith.
we would move to accept these goals as they are printed now, and then once the strategic plan is moved forward and we vote and approve that, then we kind of reflect and just make sure that there's nothing glaring missing from Scott's goals.
If I were a ventriloquist, that's exactly what I would have said. So.
I didn't have my hand in the puppet though.
Like a little, you're a puppet.
No, that would be you.
That was,
Thanks, Dan.
But what I,
That's what I understand it to be as.
Yeah.
And I like that.
My
Jackie?
inner self agrees with you, too.
Jackie?
I'm fine with that, but what I don't want to happen is what's happened in the past, where all of a sudden we're revising or making this addition, and then people are upset because we've now added a goal and they don't think Scott has had enough time to accomplish that goal based on when we originally approved the goals. I have no problem with it, but I know in the past it has been a problem with a delayed superintendent evaluation, and we've been trying to get away from being delayed and being timely with it. So I just want to put that on the table, that this will open us up to potentially adjusting something or adding something midterm, hypothetically, and as long as everyone understands that, and that goal will be worked on for the 2018-19, you know, presumably with not as much time as the rest of them, I'm fine.
Madam Chair, as I follow up, and it's,
You gonna put your dipstick in that one?
yeah, yes. How about this thought? On Scott's page 3 of the draft goals here, on the top actions, third paragraph down.
Yes.
Work with strategic planning steering committee to develop a new strategic plan for the district that responds to the wants from stakeholders, focuses on the improvement of teaching, learning in the Monomoy regional schools. I think if anything falls out on that, that covers it. So as we, you know, as this group in another 5 weeks comes forward with the draft to be voted on, if something glaringly jumps out, it fits right into that.
I'm channeling my inner Barbara and thinking there's a point of order in here somewhere, and that Terry did make a motion. So it needs to be either seconded or not seconded
Okay.
for it to go away.
All right. It was made by Terry,
I never
interpreted by you. Is there a second to Terry's motion?
Can we repeat it?
Second.
It doesn't have to be seconded. It can be non-seconded. which would make it go
Oh,
away.
okay,
I'll second it then.
Okay, so then we need to vote on that
Okay,
motion or
I'll-
discuss.
all in favor?
I'd like to amend it.
Oh,
Oh, it's
I'd like to amend it in light of what Jackie said, to be brought up from the results of the strategic plan by the first school committee meeting in December, because the school committee, the strategic plan should be done November. Right?
Lord, hope so.
She needs to second the amendment and then vote on the amendment.
okay, so does anyone want to second the amendment?
I second the amendment.
Now vote on the amendment.
Now we're going to vote on the amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
Thank you.
So now we go back to the main, sorry, now we go back to the main motion that was amended.
The main motion. So when you interpret it?
So the interpreting, so we might need to clarify the motion.
All right.
That we're now
We-
voting on.
Could we have some clarification?
So Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, your motion is to use the strategic plan that is approved no later than the end of the November, second meeting in November, so that at the
First-
December, so that the
There's
first
only
meeting
one-
in
There's
December,
only one meeting in December, isn't there?
in November?
Yeah.
December.
Well, the only, so we would need to approve the strategic plan in November.
Yes.
So that we come to the December meeting and alter goals as desired, is that?
So if it's not completely finalized, we can't, I mean,
Exactly.
by then, there'd be enough information, so even if it wasn't every single
I'm just
thing.
clarifying, I'm
Okay.
not making opinion, I'm just clarifying for Terry.
That's fine, Nancy, and I think that captures
So
my thought.
that's the motion that was amended by Sharon.
Yeah.
That's what we're voting on now.
Okay, is there a second?
That's already been seconded.
Oh, so, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I oppose that. I don't want to change later.
Oh,
So,
okay.
That's okay.
I still thank you for clarifying what you're opposed to.
I'm going to tell you what you're trying to say, and then I'm going to oppose it.
This is the fun part, though.
Yeah. Where are we? Okay.
Now we can either approve his goals
Oh,
as presented.
is that in a motion or no?
Yeah, because all that was just to,
Oh, yeah, okay. Do I have a motion to approve the goals?
I
Jackie?
move that this, I move that this, you don't trust me now, do you?
I'm sorry.
I move that the superintendent's goals for 2018-19 be approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
so those are your goals, so
All right.
less.
To continue on my superintendent's report, in your packet is also, we'll call it the October 1 update. So school districts each year send to the state October 1 enrollment numbers. So what you have here on the left side is 2018, where we were last year, and on the right side, 2019. You can, if you want to do advanced math, you'll sort of remember that the kindergartners that were at Chatham Elementary School in 2018 are now in grade 1 at Chatham Elementary School. So if we, so you can go and look at cohort retention. So if we just look at that one example, so there were 34 kindergartners at Chatham Elementary School last year. This year, there are 32 kindergartners at Chatham Elementary School, which means odds are 2 kids moved out of town. It's, but that's a net 2 kids moved out of town, because it could have been 4 kids moved out of town and 2 kids moved in. The punchline here, if you look at the change or the delta for grade level or for the district, this year we have 13 fewer children from Chatham going to Monomoy. We have that completely offset by Harwich. There are 14 more children from Harwich going to Monomoy. There are actually 20 more students that are school choice students going to Monomoy, which brings us to a net, we're up 21 students this year. Things of note. You'll notice that Chatham Elementary School's kindergarten cohort coming in. There's 34 kids at Chatham Elementary School. That's the same as last year. Kindergarten at Harwich Elementary School is actually down. You know, there's fewer Harwich families with kindergartners this past year, and that 21 is a pretty significant number, and I think it's going to give us pause as we go into next year when we look at the total number of kindergartners at Harwich. Can we sustain 6 kindergarten sections at Harwich or not? So at the moment, we have 6, but if we see this number creep down further, it may not make sense to keep 6 open if we want to keep the class size comparable to Chatham, because Chatham, at least the last 2 years, is carrying 34 students, which 17 per class, per classroom, and trying to make sure that those numbers are comparable between the schools. You'll notice that the bubble of kids that was at 5th grade last year has now moved up to 6th grade, so there are 49 more 6th graders. That's just because there was a bumper crop of 5th graders last year. And the reason you see that 41 fewer kids in 5th grade is not that folks left the district in 5th grade, it's because it's that bubble of kids coming up, and there were just fewer 5th graders. So we actually have one less section of 5th grade. We're back to sort of what I think is sort of the norm for Monomoy, which is 8 sections of 5th grade. We added a section last year to accommodate that bubble of kids, and now have sort of diverted some staffing to accommodate the bubble in 6th grade. It's important to note that we've got 25 additional 9th graders this year. Some of that is because of choice. And then in terms of looking at the numbers and how it impacts our bottom line, school choice students coming into the district up by 20, so there's some revenue that comes in with those at roughly $5,000 a shot, so that's about $100,000 coming in. There's another number that impacts the bottom line rather significantly, and that you'll notice that there are 6 fewer out-of-district students here, thanks to some great work that Melissa and her team is doing, and that means that there's less money flowing out due to out-of-district placements. Any question on the numbers?
Ask a quick question?
Yep.
Sorry, Ms. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Going from 10th grade last year to 11th grade this year, there's 11 more. Are those students, where'd they come from?
I don't know yet. So.
I mean, it looks like.
Some of the oddities of October 1 numbers is we don't have, while we know who's in our district and where they came from, we don't know where Harwich and Chatham students are that are elsewhere, and we get that information comes in and over the next month,
Seems like
roughly
a big
month
jump
and a half.
from sophomores to juniors. Kind of random.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, a question to follow up on that. Scott, can you discern the numbers out of this for possibly increase or decrease or neutral for Lighthouse Middle School? Grade 5, and also what was Sturgis reflective on with ins and outs?
Let's see. I've seen those numbers, and I don't have them at the top of my head. I think that our number relative of kids that have headed off to Sturgis is relatively flat, and I think that we've seen a slight decrease in the number of families at Lighthouse. And again, it's hard to figure out, what's a trend and what is chance when both of those institutions have lottery aspects to, to their enrollment as well, so. Last two things in terms of superintendent's report. Fingers crossed, but tomorrow night, if you come to the Monomoy Regional High School football game against Bridgewater, or West Bridgewater, at the homecoming football game, you should be able to use the restroom and not be in a porta potty. So I went out there this morning, and they were hanging the stall doors. And the only thing that we were waiting on beyond the stall doors into having functional bathrooms, as I understand it, was a hookup from the Harwich Water Department. And I've received a text from Chris Clark that it will happen before the game. So I don't know if it has happened today or if it's going to happen tomorrow, but all that's really left is turning on the water, and it's not that everything's completely finished. There still might be some wainscoting to put up and countertops to put into the kitchen area, but we could at least ideally have bathrooms and food service. It's come a long ways, and it's nice to see.
I really want to thank all the people that worked so hard on that, because there was Simon Evans and quite a good group of people, including community people that worked on that. So it's great.
And last but not least, in terms of my report, on Monday, we officially end the FY19 budget season, and we start moving into the FY20 budget season. So on Monday, October 15th, the Chatham members of the committee, along with Harwich, if you so wish, are welcome to join Katie and I at the Chatham Budget Summit in the Annex. And then on the following Monday, October 22nd, we will have a standing room only performance at the Harwich Select joint meeting at the Harwich Select Board between their selectmen and finance committee, with us in attendance. The budget summit, there's not much of a presentation that happens at that for us. We'll be there to talk enrollment if asked, but Jill Goldsmith and Alex will be doing a presentation on the state of the budget, what they anticipate their known costs. Katie and Don and I were meeting with the town finance directors earlier today, so they have a feel for where our numbers are, and we have a feel for what their wherewithal is. At the Harwich Selectmen's meeting, there will be a little more in terms of a presentation from us, so we'll be presenting our enrollment numbers. We'll be presenting a little sort of 5-year view on where we see things. Of course, looking 5 years out is a little challenging when you don't have a ratified contract, and you still don't know quite what the transportation, busing situation is going to look like a year from now. So there's two really big unknowns, and trying to build a 5-year projection with two huge unknowns is going to be interesting. And then I also sent an email to Chris saying that we should, at that time, also just discuss the lease with them. And at some point, we'll need to get on the Chatham Select Board's agenda to discuss the lease change.
Scott, what time is that Chatham meeting on?
15?
The 15th,
Yeah,
6,
6 o'clock? Thank you.
and Harwich is at 6 as well.
6:30.
Thank you.
And
Was it
So-
the October 15th or October 16th? Which one's
Says
the?
15th.
The 15th is the Monday, okay. And then the following Monday, the 22nd.
Yeah.
So, on the presentation that's going to be given, I think you said it was just for the Harwich meeting, but could you send that to us ahead of time?
Sure.
That would be great, thank you.
I mean, it will be largely those enrollment numbers. And I think we may need to reach out to the finance subcommittee, I don't know, trying to figure out how to conceptualize a 5-year plan, given the complete unknowns at the moment.
Okay, I think that brings us to declaration of surplus items.
Okay.
Oh,
Just jumping on it.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I move to approve the following surplus materials, estimated value under $5,000, from the Monomoy Regional High School, room 8212. 1 transparency binder, 60 tape manuals, 6 Spanish workbooks, 52 teacher ancillaries, 1 transparency binder, 38 tape manuals, should have added these up, 21 workbooks, 23 textbooks, and 7 Saludos workbooks.
Keep going.
Keep going. Oh, okay. I also move to approve the surplus materials estimated value, the disposal of, 5 teacher textbooks, 1 manual and workbook, 1 curso segundo, 30 Spanish vocabulary, 2 AP Spanish prep, 5 vamos a ver, 1 Español avanzado, 13 the Spanish writing folio, 17 lexicary, and also from the Monomoy Regional High School, 40 word history, people, and nations.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And is this the lease agreement update, or is it?
The lease
Yeah.
amendment?
Madam Chair, I have a motion to read regarding the lease agreement.
Oh. No.
This
Sorry.
is from our previous meeting. So the motion reads, this is much clearer than my normal Terry Russell motion, so pay attention. Motion to amend the lease agreement between the towns of Chatham and Howard and the Monomoy Regional School District signed October 2012 as presented. Points of discussion. 1, amended lease with red line copy and draft amended copy provided to school committee members and discussed at the September 27th, 2018 meeting. Amendment made only to Article 9, Insurance, section of the lease agreement, and reflects the practice in place currently in the district in 2 towns, are obtaining insurance. Amended lease states towns will obtain insurance for their town-owned buildings, Howard Elementary, Chatham Elementary, and the Monomoy Regional Middle School, and will name the Monomoy Regional School District as an additional insurer. It says the district will be invoiced to the cost of the insurance. And lastly, 3, this is not applicable to the high school.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, payment approval for prior year invoice. Do we need any discussion about that, or can we just?
Katie Isernio, Business Manager. One of the prior year invoices actually goes back, it's to the town of Chatham, and we discovered that we were not being invoiced for the fuel that we've been using, the trucks and the van that uses the town DPW gas. So we wanted to rectify that, so that's the large invoice to the town of Chatham.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move to approve the prior year invoice to the Cape Cod Collaborative for $6,564.22.
Second?
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move to approve the invoice to the town of Chatham in the amount of $10,191.03.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the prior year invoice to Harwich Paint and Decorating in the amount of $105.99.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I think that's it. And so I will move to adjournment for executive,
Entertain a motion.
oh, first we adjourn?
You want to entertain a motion to adjourn into.
Yeah, I would, yeah. I need a motion to adjourn to executive session pursuant to MGL 30A, Section 21, to discuss strategy with respect to Unit A collective bargaining and negotiations.
So moved.
We're all moving. So moved.
Okay, so I need a
Roll call vote.
roll call vote. Jackie?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
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 Chair says aye. We're going into executive session.
We're going into executive session,
Coming out for adjournment only.
coming out for adjournment only.
Good night, all.
Thank you all for being here. Have a great night.
You are that excited to leave.